Hey, girlfriends, welcome to another episode of Girlfriends and Goals. We're your hosts, Miosha.
And Samaria.
This podcast is a space where we'll talk about friendships, life goals, a little bit of pop culture, and all things womanhood.
On today's episode, we're discussing our thoughts on whether or not potential is enough when dating. So we definitely have a good episode in store for you guys. If you are watching this on YouTube, please make sure to subscribe to our channel and give this video a thumbs up. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, please give us a 5-star rating and write a review. All right. So let's jump in to the episode. What are your thoughts on women dating for the potential that they feel like their partner could have?
Feel like it's okay
Hmm.
as long as it's within reason. And the reason would be, for me at least,
Hmm.
I guess if the area of potential is something that you feel like you're flexible on. I feel like in terms of dating, it's all a risk. You just never know what the future will
It's all
hold.
risky.
Yeah, it's all risky. Love is risky, and you really have to be willing to put yourself out there and be okay a bit with the unknown because nothing is guaranteed. But I think the potential has to be in an area where maybe you feel like, okay, if it doesn't go fully in the direction I think it's going to be, I'm okay
Mhm.
with it. Or if it's in an area where it's maybe not near and dear to your heart, or where you would be broken or shattered if it doesn't go the exact way that you want it to go. So
Mhm.
I'm just going to leave it at that. I don't want to ramble on too much, but I
Yeah.
think it's okay within reason. And I think depending on the stage of life, it may almost be inevitable.
So I kind of agree with that as far as the stage of life thing. So, for example, if you are 21, maybe, it makes sense to date someone who has potential because what are you, like, college age? So they haven't even really had a chance to do much with their life. They probably don't know themselves and they're still learning who they are. But if you are, like, say, 30, honestly, I would say even 27 and up, maybe you need to think about things a little bit differently depending on what your
Mm.
goal is. And that's
Okay.
not to say that people will have their stuff together by 27. I just think, like, if you're, say, a 21-year-old, then um the person doesn't necessarily have to have things as figured out. You're kind of just like playing it by ear at that age, it seems to me. Um, but as you get older and into your career, like, if someone, for example, isn't making what you find acceptable, but they're actively, like, making steps or taking steps to earn more, or have a more flexible schedule, whatever that thing is for you. um yeah, you just, at a certain age, maybe need to see actions as well,
I'm
not
glad you brought up the age piece
Mhm.
because I can think back to my early 20s and when I was dating. I think in that space, even if I didn't see fully what the potential was, like nothing had materialized,
Yeah.
I at least wanted to see some clues or just something there that gave me the indication of, okay, this person isn't just talking or isn't
Mhm.
just an idea. They're actually putting in the work. So I think
Yeah.
back to that time of that's the time of putting in the work. And if I don't see the work being put
Yeah.
in, then it's like, oh, okay, well, potential, you can't get to potential if there's no work being put
Yes.
in. But then I also think about as I was getting ready to enter into my 30s,
Mhm.
where people in my real life and I would see memes where people would say like, "Oh, I thought by 30 I would have this and
Yeah.
this, or I would have figured it out." And just in your mind, like 30 is like this age where I'm going to be a real adult now.
Yeah. I think that's why I tried to qualify it, because I don't necessarily think people have to have everything figured out, by the age of 30. So I think I said,
Yeah.
what, 27, like, you need to start seeing,
Mhm.
like, actions.
Yeah.
It's less about, oh, how much is this person making? It's more about, what are they doing? Like, what is their day to day? routine? Are
Yeah.
they a focused person? Are they focused in an area that maybe could benefit them? Uh, do they have some type of a plan? At least with this thing, like plans change all the time. What you're doing at
Mhm.
27 might not be what you're doing at 32. But wherever you are at this point, are you showing a certain work ethic that would lead me to believe like, oh, this potential might yield something?
Oh,
If that,
yeah. Are the habits there?
yeah,
What does your day-to-day look like? And
yeah,
I don't know. I feel as humans, we're not as good as we think we are as compartmentalizing, like, oh, I'm going to be super productive in one area, but then not in the other. I think those traits carry over. And so I think when
mhm.
you're younger, you're just being vigilant in your potential partner and what they're up to.
Yeah, and like we use like or I use salary as an example, but I think
Mm.
even with stuff like, well, how does this person communicate? You know, like if you, for example, if you say to me at 27, oh, you know, my communication could be better, and I don't see you taking the steps towards better, that might be something, that might be an indication for me, like, okay, I don't know how serious this person is about getting their communication together. Is this something that I want to like wait and
Mhm.
see how they might progress? Or is it something that is bothersome enough that maybe I need to find somewhere else? Like it could be anything, but I think like as you get closer to 30, just start thinking through, okay, well, what is the plan? Or at least like if you know you're bad at something, um,
Mhm.
at least know, okay, how can I improve, and start like making baby steps. It doesn't happen overnight. So like for me, there should be a lot of grace if you're choosing to date the person for their potential.
Mhm.
But yeah, I just think there should be actionable steps along with things.
Yeah,
Maybe 27 is too young. I don't know. What do you think?
I don't want to put an age on it, but what
Yeah.
I was going to say is I'm glad that you brought up that it can be any area. I even think of something as simple as you envisioning that you want to be a world traveler. I'd
Hmm.
imagine that maybe if it's important to you, your partner will be with you, but a baby step is you getting a passport, getting global entry, just the steps to head in that direction. No, your ticket isn't booked to Portugal tomorrow, but
Right.
you're doing just the basic steps. Like I can remember one of my friends was dating this guy, and I remember she really liked to travel,
Mhm.
but he didn't even have a passport and didn't want to get one. And so for me, that's just the baby steps of, okay, if we really start to think about doing life together, can this person come along with me, or
Mhm.
are they just not even willing? Like you would say, oh, I'm interested, but then not do the baby steps.
Yeah. And honestly, so I know I said like the whole 27 thing, but I think like say for the passport example.
Hmm.
So at maybe a year, you know, if we made it that far and everything else is going well, then that's something that I might check in on and be like, hey, so I remember that you said that this is something you want to do. It's important to me that, you know, we are achieving the things that we've set out to do. What do you think? You know, do you want to go down to the post office and get the process started? Or, you know? No, but I think there should be grace, and people should, depending on what the potential looks like. So it can't just be, I think this is the point I'm trying to make. It can't just be, oh, I see potential in you that you're not actively trying to tap into.
They have to want
Yeah.
it as well.
Yeah, they have to be like tapping into that potential. It can't just be because I will see the world in people, you know, like if you are a friend of mine or something, like I will see the best in you. You
Hmm.
might have only five good characteristics, and those are the five that I would be like, well, that is why you're my friend, because you have these five good characteristics. But when it comes to dating, I don't think you can harp on the five good characteristics if the person isn't, you know, tapping into their potential.
Yeah, you don't want to drag anyone along. either.
Yeah.
So that's why I mentioned earlier that I think it also depends on the area. Like if it's something that's really important to me, say it's higher education and I have a master's degree, which I don't, by the way, which is just an example. But if it's really important that my partner is excited about higher education as well, it
Yeah.
wouldn't make sense for me to pair with someone who just doesn't see it as important to attain a higher level degree, because no one is going to go sit through a 2-3 year master's program just for someone else. So
I
it would
know
make
that's
sense
right.
for me to pair with someone where academia is our thing.
Yeah. Or at least like you see value in it. So
Right.
like if you, because I talked about the age thing. So if you're 21, right, and it's important to you that someone has a college education for you to date them or whatever, I think you can't just be with someone who you're like, oh, he's so smart, or she's so smart, and I see that potential. This person could be freaking Albert Einstein, but if the thing that's important to you isn't just, oh, they're smart, it's that they're also college educated, whatever value that has these days. But
Mhm.
it's that they're college educated, then them being smart and having the potential to be college educated isn't necessarily enough based on what you want. So it comes down to like what it is that you want, and making sure that their potential is moving towards what it is that you're interested in. And if it's not, and you choose to stay with them, that's fine too. Like, people's minds change, but those are just my initial thoughts on it.
Yeah. So in your opinion, what are some benefits of dating for the potential that you see in someone, if there are any to you?
I think people love this idea of I helped this person build,
Mm.
so I you hear people all the time say, oh, well, Barack wasn't Barack when when so I think that's a benefit. Like, you get to see someone reach the things that they've said that they're going to reach, or accomplish the things that you knew that they were capable of. And I think that
Mhm.
is satisfying, like, me forever, and I'm sure you get some satisfaction if I accomplish certain things too. So I think that's a benefit of waiting and seeing how the potential plays out, is that
Yeah.
you get that satisfaction. How about
Yeah,
you?
you're a part of their story. I
Yeah.
think there's just this feel goodness that comes with knowing that you got to see the journey and maybe
Yes.
coach them along, help them along.
Support. Yeah.
Yeah, there's this rapport, camaraderie, and if there's genuine love and affection, you're right, it does bring a certain level of excitement and satisfaction. Like, I think about the day that Samaria gets this PhD.
I think
I'm
about
already I am already just so hyped, so excited for that season and that time. So I think you're right that it does transfer over into the dating scene as well. I think another benefit is, I don't know if it's bragging rights, but just this
Mhm.
sense of, hey, I've been there for you when you didn't have it. And then for the
Oh,
person who's achieving,
yeah.
maybe there's this um satisfaction or this feeling of peace and calm around not having to question if you're just with them because of the hype or what they've
Yeah.
achieved. It's like, oh no, I've been here through it with
Yes.
you. I didn't just show up once all the hard work was done.
Yeah. Yeah, it gives you a sense of like, man, if they were with me at my worst, right? And
Mhm.
now they're also reaping the benefits, as opposed to, okay, they didn't see all that it took for me to accomplish this. And so yeah, I definitely understand that.
And I'll add that
Mhm.
maybe it's also this sense of appreciation that the person who's achieving these things feels, in terms of, oh, this person has sweat equity in the game with me as well. And that they value kind of where I am maybe more because they've had a chance to see
Yes.
everything that you've had to go through. Like I've
Mhm.
never been close to anyone else in higher education at the level that Samira is in,
Mm.
but seeing firsthand like what everything that she's going through makes me even more excited for the prize at the end because of how close I am to watching the process.
Yeah. Yeah, and I feel that way too. Like everybody who's been with me on this journey, like it's a win for us, you know?
Hmm.
So yeah. And I think that's why I said what I said on the first question, is because I think a lot of times when people date for potential, they don't end up reaping the benefits because they I don't know, maybe miscalculated how invested the actual person was in their own potential. And I mean, that's not necessarily a bad thing. Like most relationships don't work out. So there's a lot of people out here miscalculating. But if I had like a younger cousin or a niece or something to talk to, I would just be like, hey, you know, potential is great. Make sure that person sees the potential that you see and they're as invested as you are in like realizing that potential.
Hmm. Yeah, you say that a lot of most relationships don't last. I think when it comes to dating for potential, something that I hear often is women just being warned about not dating too much for potential, kind of
Mhm.
accepting a person for where they are, especially once you get to a certain age, because it is often that we see where things don't always pan out
Mhm.
or your investment of time, you're not able to reap maybe what you thought you would from investing your time.
Yeah, and I think that kind of goes into like the risk of. So I'm gonna ask you, like, what other risks do you think exist in dating for potential?
They may change their mind. I mean, they may have a goal or a dream and then they may pivot. They
Yeah.
may decide to do something different.
Mhm.
Even you along the journey with them may change as well. Maybe what you may have been okay with the potential that they outlined on year 2, but then
Mhm.
on year 5 or 6, you may feel like, okay, well, is that enough?
Yeah.
Because you may evolve and change as well, especially as we get older. You mentioned dating from a young age, early 20s, we'll just say early
Mhm.
20s, not a specific age, but imagine all the growth that happens between 21 and 31. The
Yeah. Yeah.
potential you may have been okay with at 21 may look a lot different at 31.
Absolutely. And they do say, well, I hear this said a lot where they're like,
Mhm.
okay, well, if you're gonna go into a committed relationship with someone, you have to go in expecting that nothing will change, but also expecting that everything could change, right? So I think that's one of the risky things with potential is like you see what this person could accomplish, but if the job that they're doing today or the person that they are today doesn't improve or doesn't grow into something else, like you need to understand that there's a risk in you having to be okay with that, with that too. And so
Yeah.
that's always something I look at. Like, you might not have a whole lot of money today, right?
Mhm.
And I use this example because I'm in a PhD program, and I know, like, from when I was working full time to now, like what the difference is. So, in dating, if you don't have a whole lot of income right now, but whether it's like $1 or $2, you put something to the side to make sure that you do something thoughtful for me. It makes sense to me that when this person has more, they'll probably do that same thing, put something to the side, except it might not be $1 or two anymore.
Mhm.
Like my dad would always say, if you're not giving when you have a little, you probably won't give when you have a lot. Like, because if you're a giver, you're a giver, whether
Mhm.
it's $1 or $100 or $1,000. Like if you're a giver, you're a giver. So yeah, I think those would be things that I might look for so that it can minimize the risk a little bit.
Girl, it's all a risk though.
It
Nothing
is.
is guaranteed, but like you said, calculated risk. I
Mhm.
do think that there are certain signs and just certain things you can look out for a little bit.
I expected you to say that because I feel like ever since I've known you, you're always like, were there signs of this before this thing happened? Like somewhere along the line, there had to have been some indication. So I fully expected you to say that during this conversation at some point.
Yeah, because I'm always so shocked when people do complete 180s. Like they just wake up one day and they're a different person. Not
Hmm.
to say that it's impossible. I have heard of instances. It's just not
Same.
very
Common.
common
Yeah.
that I've heard that. But I'm gonna try to think of some more risk.
Okay.
Um
I think besides change, like that's what I think the biggest risk um is like the change factor that they might change their mind, and you can't hold somebody hostage to the dream they had 5 years ago, you know.
a risk I just thought of also is related to age,
Okay.
where the time is different in terms of dating depending on just where you are in life
Yeah.
and what do you hope to accomplish. So the time that you may be willing to put in looks different in your 20s or early 20s maybe than your 30s. I think of the relationships I've seen around me and just how in your 20s, I don't want to say it's nothing, but it seems like it's nothing to just date a guy for 5, 7 years and
Ooh, no, Miosha, not
I'm
five
talking
7 years.
I'm talking early 20s. I've met people where by the time they're in their late 20s going into 30s, they've been with their partner for a while
Wow.
before getting married. And some of them got married and some of them don't. Versus in your 30s, especially if you want to have children, that time isn't there. And then definitely pushing into your 40s, where
Mhm.
I think as we get older, maybe we look to minimize dating for potential just because that time isn't there.
Yeah. It also might not make sense depending on where you are in your career. So,
It depends on what area of potential you're talking about.
yeah.
So in terms of career aspirations and things like
Mhm.
that, yeah.
So, okay, I was specifically thinking about it was in the news recently. Ebony Williams and Iyanla had a conversation where, Iyanla asked her if she would be willing to date a bus driver. And she was like, I would date the person who owned the bus. And Iyanla was like, no, see, that's where you're wrong. Which we did a whole episode on this. Like, is it picky or is it preference? But
Mhm.
like for someone like Ebony Williams and what it seems like she wants, it wouldn't make sense to date for potential. It seems like she wants
Mhm.
someone who has some type of a profession that is similar to hers, where they might be bringing in what she's bringing in, maybe on that same like caliber. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's specifically what I had in mind when I said what I said.
I have so many thoughts. I also think it just the whole situation,
Yeah.
it just goes under the assumption of this guy would be okay with dating a person who has already attained XYZ. I don't know her, but
Okay.
it was pushed with the assumption of like he would be okay with that. And
Hmm.
I don't know that I've seen that very often. Like,
Okay.
not to say that it's impossible, but I think both men and women are comfortable with dating people,
Hmm.
I think, of similar interest and just similar space and area of life.
Right. Exactly. People are usually dating within their own like socioeconomic status.
Yeah.
Um, so I
And
don't think what she said was so far fetched. I think it's what we are used to seeing. Like, yeah, the movies might have us believing, oh, a wealthy man is gonna date someone who's like not in his socioeconomic status, or a wealthy woman because he's just, a good person. And obviously, what you do for a living does not equal your value.
mhm.
Never has, never will. Because there are people who are at a certain socioeconomic status whose value I don't necessarily think is maybe as high as they think it is.
Mm.
But yeah, so the movies might have us believe that that is something that happens all the time, but realistically, I don't think it does.
No, and from what I've heard, it goes both ways. Men and women
Mhm.
both likely will meet people, date, and marry within their same socioeconomic
Yeah.
space. So,
Like,
yeah.
where would she be to, like, where would they be in the same room? But anyway, what you were saying about the age thing reminded me of something that happened when I had just graduated college and started working.
Mhm.
And so I was in a department with all older women and one older man. And for some time, like we had a couple of people in their 30s, but then they transferred out. So my department was all older people and me, pretty much. And so I was talking to the lady who sat next to me, and I don't know how, but we're talking about dating. And I was like, yeah, maybe you date somebody like 2, 3 years before thinking about getting engaged. And she looked at me and she was like, well, I'll tell you, I am in my late 40s. I don't have 2 years to give to nobody. And so she actually like met and I think married her husband within maybe like a little over a year, if
Yeah.
that. And so she was just telling me, like, listen, at this age, I don't have that privilege. But go off, sis. Essentially is what she
Yeah.
was saying. Yeah.
Yeah, we move and shake differently just depending on the season we
Hmm.
are in life.
No, I was gonna say, and for her, like she had already had her kids, so it wasn't even a matter of, oh, I want to have children. Like she was done having her kids. It's just you're not about to be boyfriend girlfriending me at this age. So just wanted to throw that out there. It's not all linked to kids. It's also about just companionship and how seriously do you take me. Um,
Yeah, you remember I told you about a family member of mine who was basically like, the whole girlfriend boyfriend thing isn't a thing once you get to a certain age. Either you're a friend or you're engaged or you're married. This whole dating, oh, it's my boyfriend, it's my
yeah,
girlfriend. We're not doing that in our 40s,
I know.
according to them. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting. So they did end up splitting up. So I don't know that that has anything to do with how long they knew each other before. But if you have a shorter amount of time, just make sure that you're doing all your investigating.
You gotta do your due diligence. So I want to ask you, do you think it's easier to find your person
Okay.
when you're willing to wait for them to meet your expectations versus just find someone who already has what you're looking for?
I don't think anybody's gonna have what you're okay. So neither one of those. I think it's somewhere in the middle. I don't think
Mm.
I don't think there's any one person who's going to have every single thing, that you're looking for, of course. I think some things you might have to be like, okay, I can wait around for this thing to happen. Something that's on like the lower end, like maybe I could wait for them to do this thing. But yeah, I think it's a mixture of both. I don't think it's easier when you have the person and you're waiting for them to accomplish something. I think depending on how patient you are, and how quickly they're trying to accomplish their thing, I could see frustrations with that. Um,
Mm.
yeah, so I wouldn't say that. But then also, just realistically, everybody or no one person's going to have everything. There are things that you are going to have to work on throughout the rest of your life.
Mm.
And that's with any like friendships, significant others, with anything. Like nobody's gonna be exactly what you want, but
That's a
like,
big but.
yeah, it is a huge but, because I think sometimes people hear, oh, um, nobody's gonna be everything that you want and think, oh, okay, well, if he's not like all this stuff, then I can change him and I can make him. And like that's not what I'm saying. Like maybe they need to have about, I was gonna say 95% of what it is that you're looking for already. But I'll say like maybe 85 to 95% of what it is that you're already looking for before, you think about making a commitment.
Okay.
What do you think? What's easier in your opinion?
I don't think either is easy, but I do think if you're willing to give it time,
Mhm,
I think you maybe could potentially progress faster. So
mhm,
for some people, it may be very important for them to be married more than getting all of the things that are higher priority on their list.
mhm,
And so I think if it's more important for you to get married, then yeah, you may see that as a win, I guess. And that's
mhm.
where I feel for young women, where it's just all this pressure to be married. And women can find themselves being, I don't want to say pushed, but more likely to sign up for a situation where they're having to wait for their
Mhm.
expectations to be met in areas that are more important than them, than maybe even what they realize in that moment.
So I'm gonna talk about the Iyanla thing again because
Mhm.
after, Ebony said that she wasn't interested in dating someone who, was driving a bus, Iyanla said, I would date a bus driver if he, respected his mom, if he treated me great, if he, went down the list. And it's like, great, well, that's what you want, you know? And oftentimes you'll see people, sometimes of an older generation, sometimes not, but you'll see people who impose their values and impose their priorities on you as opposed to you doing what it is that to be right, even though you're going to be in that situation. So say for example Ebony Williams does go and say, okay, well, y'all said I should date a bus driver, and then she's not content in that situation. It's like, yeah, because you just took someone else's values and tried to make them your own when they really aren't. They might be like oil and water with your values, you
Mhm.
know?
Yeah, it's kind of almost like a got you type of scenario where it's
Because
trying
why
to
would she
have
even ask that? Like,
it's
why would she
it's
even
just trying to justify, well, see, this is why y'all are single now, because
single?
you're too picky and you should just have this, and this, and then you'll end up getting married. But it's like, okay, well, what about after, if you're not satisfied, if you're not happy, if you're having to wait too long for your
Mhm.
expectations to be met? It's just like, oh, see, gotcha. That's why y'all ain't married now. It's like, okay, well, what's the trade-off? Being miserable and being married? Just
And
because that may be okay for you, that
yeah,
doesn't mean that that's the standard for other women.
right. And I don't even think they see it as being miserable. I think for them, it's like, well, I'm married, so I can't be miserable. And it's like, no, well, again, that is you. But there were people who were saying stuff like, oh, see, she's a gold digger. With that lady's resume, I doubt that it's about, oh, okay, well, I need money in the bank. It seems to be more of, I want a companion who I deem as my equal. And that's
Or
not to say anybody's less than. It's just I've accomplished these things, and there's nothing wrong with wanting someone who's also accomplished a lot of those same things.
yeah. And like you said, if you run down her resume,
Mhm.
I'd be shocked if it was just the money that
Mhm.
was driving her. I mean, the level of drive and ambition you'd have to have to
Yeah.
attain what she has, it's more than just money. You have to
Mhm.
have a passion for what you're doing.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. So as it relates to dating, do you feel like there's a difference between settling and dating for potential? If so, what is that difference to you?
hmm. So we've already discussed what we think dating for potential is and our thoughts. Settling, when I think of settling, I think of you putting to the wayside something that's of very high importance to you
Okay.
just to move the relationship forward.
Mhm.
So for example, um, if you really want to be a stay-at-home mom and you
Mhm.
want to have that experience, but you meet a person and that's very important to you.
Yeah.
Child rearing is a very important thing. But you meet a person where they're like, maybe they don't make as much money, or maybe they have the idea that both parents should be in the workforce to financially set the family up to be in a stronger position.
Yeah.
To me, that would be settling if being a homemaker was very, very, very important to you.
Yeah.
And if that level of importance is still there, even once the kids come into the picture, you're just like, well, I'm in it. It is what it is. You've already
Yeah.
progressed forward. Um, Potential is all the other things we've discussed earlier. I won't rehash
Yeah.
all of it.
But with that example, I think potential even looks like, oh, well, this is something you want. We can't do it right now. Let's come up with a 5-year plan so that we can make it happen, as opposed to, nah, girl, you're
Nope.
gonna have to work.
Yeah,
You're
that's
gonna have-
it. It is what it is. And
yeah.
this is just one example, but
Mhm.
I think sometimes once you're in a relationship, and that's the risk. It's like you just don't know.
Hmm.
Feelings could change or they could not.
I think a lot of times people talk about like settling just for the sake of being in a relationship. But sometimes I think people settle just because they really like that person. Like I'm not where they're saying, okay, I'm not pressed to be married or anything. It's just that, I feel like this is my person. And so
The
settling can
trade-off.
happen. Yeah, settling can happen in that situation too, where you feel like, okay, I know that I can do better, or maybe I don't know if I can do better, but just like you said, there are things that are too great that I'm having to compromise here, that I'm gonna just throw myself into compromising, even though I don't really, want to, and even though I know that it will take my life on a different path than what I desire.
And if you feel a way along the
Yeah.
way, it's like, okay, well, once you're in it, then
Mm,
you're feeling a way if they aren't progressing as fast or this isn't happening or they're not X way and that's your expectation.
yeah.
It's like, I don't know that it's fair to the other person if
Hmm.
you're having these inner feelings of this isn't really what I want, but I guess it's different if maybe you come to a sense of peace about it and you move on. Like you kind of let it rest.
Yeah, or you've just changed your mind about something. So, say just using your stay-at-home example, because that's the one that's on the table right now. But you initially felt like, that's not for me, and then along the way, you're like, you know what? I see certain benefits in that, and I can see myself actually doing that. Like, so you change your mind as opposed to, oh, well, I'm settling for what this other person wanted me to do. Like, it's
Mhm.
definitely possible for you to see, the other person's vision and find so much value in it that you decide to go along with that. And
Yeah.
so I don't think that would be considered settling. It's just you changing your mind.
Yeah. So do you think,
Hmm.
to wrap things up, that the risk that we talked about earlier in terms
Yeah.
of dating for potential is equal between the sexes? So when a woman dates for potential, is it is equal of a risk as it is for when men date for potential?
This is a hill that I am willing to die on, right?
Oh,
And I think it's because I am a woman.
okay.
Okay. So I think the risk might not be the same. Okay, actually, I changed my mind. Depending on what it is, because I just thought about a situation where it might not apply. But um, one of the things I think is that when you're a woman, especially if you're like an ambitious woman,
Hmm.
the partner that you choose to be with, it really has a huge impact on your life, like a huger impact than I think we even can anticipate.
Mhm.
And so that's why I think it's just a little bit more risky, depending on what the potential thing is, um, for women than men. But I can think of other situations too where it's like, okay, for a man, this is a risky situation, and so yeah.
Okay.
What do you think? Do you think it's like equal?
I don't think it's equal. I think
Mhm.
it's more risky for women. It's similar to the risk that I think, I don't know if it's risk, but where women are willing to invest time and
Mhm.
energy in relationships, especially if a woman has the desire to be married and have children,
Yeah.
and you're just kind of in the waiting seat. We talked about on
Mhm.
our last episode, should women propose, and
Mhm.
so I think it's similar where we're, I think, more likely to, um, well, I don't want to say that.
Yeah, see, like it's tricky because the situation that I was thinking about is it all depends on, of course, who the man is and like what things they value. But say you're someone who like you're a man and you feel like this person who I'm dating has great potential to be, I don't know, like a mother. Like I can see them, they are great with children, they know how to like educate children, they're nurturing, they're this, they're that, whatever. If that's not something that that person is interested in, it's kind of unfair for you to continue to date them and put that burden on them of, well, you have the potential to be a great mother, so at some point I'm expecting you to change your mind and for that potential to like be realized.
I
So
get what you're saying. Even
that's why
in
I changed
just,
my mind. with
yeah,
the-
how women show
yeah.
up in motherhood, that's a risk because you just don't know just what that will look like. And it's all a risk. Love, marriage, it's just all a risk.
All right. Well, I'm gonna go into our next segment, which we usually do when we have a guest on, and that is like the this or that game, or would you rather. So we're
Hmm.
gonna do it with each other this time. There was a thread on Twitter that I saw where someone did. I don't know if you follow her, but her name is Tony, and she does okay. So she tweeted this, and so I figured we could do a few of them and just have some fun with it.
Okay.
Okay. So the first one is, would you rather receive the gift of being able to speak all languages or the gift of knowing how to play all instruments?
All languages.
Same. Why did you choose that one?
So I can speak to my family in Kenya. I wish I knew Swahili.
Okay. So
Yeah.
it was a little harder for me because I feel like with all like knowing how to do all instruments, you could have hopefully one heck of a music career, whether
Mm,
you're the artist or you're doing like background stuff. So I think it could potentially be a lucrative thing to have. But
mhm,
I would also choose languages because I'm obsessed with like getting to know different things about different people and different people groups around the world. So if I could communicate, that would make that
mhm.
so much easier for me.
Okay.
All right. So the next one is, would you rather have that you're always the most intelligent person in the room or you're always the most beautiful person in the room?
Oh, so if you don't pick the most beautiful, it doesn't mean that you're the ugliest. You just may not be the prettiest.
Sure, Miosha. If that's what you need it to
I
be, ma'am.
I'd be intelligent and hopefully I'm not too far down. I don't need to be at the top, but I'm not trying to be at the bottom.
Ooh,
I
okay.
want to be cute, but intelligent.
You know what? Hi. It depends on what age I am when you're asking this question.
Oh my
Because if
gosh.
I'm like older, I don't care to be the most beautiful person in the room. But if I'm like 0 to
Not
maybe
zero.
50, like I want to be the most beautiful person, um, I'll
Okay.
pick intelligence. I'll pick intelligence. Yeah.
All right.
Because there's makeup. So it doesn't matter how I look. I could have a new face every day. Okay. So would you rather have the ability to teleport wherever you want or the ability to be invisible whenever you want to be?
Teleport wherever I want. I
Same.
need, yeah, send me on vacation. Just get me there. No airplane.
Exactly. Right. Okay. I'm gonna do
Last
one
one.
more that I
Yeah.
think maybe we might disagree on. I don't know. Would you
Okay.
rather be the world's most skilled singer or the world's most skilled actor?
Singer.
Why?
Because I wish I knew how to sing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I guess. I guess. I would say singer too. I feel like
Yeah.
acting lessons go a longer way than singing lessons. Like singing lessons go far, but if you don't have it,
You just
like,
don't
you
have it.
just you just don't, like, you could maybe get to the point where you could hold a note, but
Mhm.
yeah, so I would say
Yeah.
singer too. Not you agreeing with me on all of them.
I feel like the first one we kind of disagreed because you said instrument and I said
No,
language.
I still said the other thing.
Oh,
I
then being a
forgot.
linguist, basically. Okay.
Yeah, I still said linguist. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for tuning into this episode of the Girlfriends and Goals podcast. Make sure you follow us on Instagram at Girlfriends and Goals podcast to share your thoughts on this topic. If you haven't subscribed already, please go ahead and do that now. And don't forget to rate, review, and share. Until next time, bye.
Bye.